No problem. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the October 18th, 2021 meeting of the Governance Committee of the University of Rhode Island Board of Trustees. At this time, I will conduct a roll call attendance to determine if quorum is present. Please clearly respond present when your name is called. I am present. Courtney Nicolato. Jay Placencia.
Present.
Charlie Fogarty.
Present.
Mike McNally.
Present.
Barbara Cadam. Mayra Gindi.
Present.
Margot Cook. And President Mark Palanche.
Present.
All right, a quorum is physically present, then we'll call the meeting to order. A reminder for all members, and just to note that Barbara Cottam is here as well. A reminder to all members, please clearly identify yourself whenever you make a motion or second to a motion so that we can reflect that appropriately in the minutes. The first order of business is the acceptance of the agenda. May I have a motion that the Governance Committee of the URI Board of Trustees accept the agenda for the meeting of October 18th, 2021?
Charlie?
Go ahead.
Okay, Jay.
So moved, Jay Placencia.
Charlie Fogarty, second.
Wonderful. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I will ask for a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That is anonymous, and the motion to accept the agenda for the meeting of October 18th, 2021 is approved. The next item on the agenda is item 2, the approval of the minutes of the September 23rd, 2021 meeting of this committee. You'll see that that is 2A, enclosure 2A in your packet. May I have a motion? Actually, let me make a quick note. There was a small amendment to the minutes on page 6, item 3E, changing the URI Foundation to read the URI University of Rhode Island Research Foundation, as noted in the minutes from October 15th. And so I just want to let you know of that edit. Any other suggestions or any edits that should be made? All right, hearing none, may I have a motion that the Governance Committee of the University of Rhode Island Board of Trustees approve the minutes of September 23rd, 2021 meeting of the Governance Committee?
So moved, Jay Placencia.
I get a second.
Charlie Fogarty, second.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is approved for the minutes of September 23rd, 2021 meeting of the Governance Committee. The next item on the agenda is item number 3. This is a discussion item. So just to note, this is to discuss the policy, not to vote on it as a recommendation to the board. That will be done at our next meeting. And so as we are going through all of our policies as a newly developed board, one of the policies that we did not have in place formally that we are taking up as part of this is the awarding of honorary degrees. And so first and foremost, I want to thank Charlie Fogarty for taking the helm on this and the lead in developing. Also want to thank the team, our faculty, Senate, many others who have been involved in the developing of policies. These are our board policies, but it takes a village to put it together. So thanks to everybody who made the time and the effort in putting this policy together. So I'm going to turn it over to Charlie, and I know he'll call up a number of URI teammates who will share the development and the details of the policy.
Thank you, Courtney. We had a working group that met. Michelle, you'll have to tell me the date that we met on.
October 5th.
October 5th on Zoom to take up your request that we review a policy for the board to adopt, looking at what other universities, peer institutions, and others have done, and we did that. I want to thank the staff, especially Dan, Lauren, and Michelle, for all of their diligent research work, and also Madam Chair, you for all the information that you forwarded to us as well from other institutions about this process. And based upon that, our council developed a proposal which essentially we hope is a simple declaration of how we award, and in the event we choose to withdraw honorary degrees, consistent with what we believe the policy of the university should be. There were discussions, I know Dan had conversations with the faculty senate as well, but it essentially keeps the process that we had in place previously, but establishes it as a formal policy that the board itself is the only one that can award honorary degrees or revoke honorary degrees, but there is a process at the university level where those names come to the board, and the president officially presents to the board recommendations to that end. And the language is here in the proposal. I know there's been some suggestions on a few edits, and I'll certainly open it up to Courtney to identify what those are going to be.
Great, thank you. And so first and foremost, I want to see if there's any editorial changes or suggestions, and then I also want to make sure that there's any questions that we want to make sure that we address as part of the development of the policy. And so let me open it up to the group and see if there are any editorial considerations or questions that we want to make sure we answer.
Can I ask?
May I?
So,
Yep.
Mayor Ivy, so for the definition,
Mhm.
this is minor. It should be, for the definition, I'm guessing is pulled out from the university manual.
Mhm.
The university committee charged with soliciting names and making recommendations of candidates, it should be to the president for the receipt of honorary degrees, but I guess the biggest one is to the president.
Yep, that's a great point. Yeah, and I think just reinstating what Mayrai's saying, really the board takes up any conferring or any revoking based on the recommendation of the president. We are not involved in the process to which names are collected. That is an open public process, but there is a significant amount of work that's done through the honorary degree committee at the university, through faculty senate, provost, as well as the president. It is the president's determination as to whether that is brought up to us. And to that point, I want to recommend some language change on the nominations and approval section, specifically on item 2 and item 3, just to continue to be clear about the importance of that, the difference there. So I'm suggesting that number 2 be edited slightly to say that the president is responsible for making the recommendations for nominations to the Board of Trustees, if approved, if that nomination was approved by the president in accordance of the university manual. We did not put the entire manual in here because that process is at the university and within the university structure and not with the Board of Trustees. Also, I'm recommending that on number 3, we change it to reflect the Board of Trustees expects that, before the president recommends any nomination, takeout is forwarded to the Board of Trustees for consideration. That amount of focused due diligence will be conducted to ensure the nominee's qualifications and eligibility for the degree. It's incredibly important. That process is lengthy and it's done very respectfully and very much in a complex manner. We want to honor that as part of the policy as well. Any other questions or feedback on the policy itself?
Courtney, this is Mike. I had one, the effective date, even when we put an effective date on this, we still have the ability to go through this process with past awardees, honorary degree recipients, right? I mean, just because we have an effective date that may be in November doesn't mean it's for those going forward.
Alyssa, do you want to answer that?
Yes, because this speaks to the process of the board's consideration of the recommendation. It would apply when the board taking up consideration of a recommendation. So any recommendation that comes forward in the future would be covered by the policy, even if nomination occurred before.
Yeah. Yeah, because the board is new, I think what Mike's reflecting, the board is new, we're taking up future, anything comes into the future, any recommendations, either from the perspective of conferring or revoking. Is that what you're thinking, Mike?
Yep, no, and that clarified it. That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Barbara?
I don't see it here, but I just want to check. I know we were sent one version and then a second version. I didn't get to see the second version, but I noticed in the first version, under confidentiality, the last sentence said upon final approval by the Board of Trustees. that same sentence was someplace else.
It is, yep.
In one of the other, I couldn't find it here, and is it repetitive or?
It-
Like, is it necessary under the confidentiality? I thought it was just kind of
I know what you're talking
placed
about.
there, and it was written someplace else,
It
but I
is.
can't find it right at the
Yeah,
moment.
it's under, so that section regarding who, got the final
Notifies.
approval and then who notifies, that's actually located both in the nominations and approval process, which is on number 5, as well as in
Yeah.
the revocation, the last sentence.
So I had it under confidentiality. It's here under,
Yep, it's there as well.
okay.
Yeah.
I just wondered if it was
Yeah. Any-
repetitive.
I'll lean into the legal team to see if there's, does it need to be under confidentiality if it's referenced in the other 2 sections?
I think the thought is that the confidentiality is maintained up through
Got it.
the final announcement
Yeah.
of the nominees. And so I
Which
think
would make
that's
the
why
list.
it also fit into the confidentiality section. But of course, if the committee wants to consider revising that language, that won't.
Well, I think it's important that the board knows to maintain that confidentiality during the process. So I would suggest we keep it.
I
but I'll
don't
lean
have a
in.
problem. I
Yeah,
just
you-
thought it was,
So
Yeah.
Barbara, you're
like,
okay with
what was
that?
I missing?
Anybody else have an issue or everybody okay? Dan, go ahead.
Not with this, but a different.
Okay,
Wait, can I just jump on this one
please do.
sentence? Should it then be that the official notification of the universities wish to confer, rescind, or revoke an honorary degree upon an individual is made by the president? So everything.
like
is-
that.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
did,
like that.
yeah.
Sounds like we get consensus on that. Everybody's comfortable with that language. Thank you, Mary. All right, Dan, what do you have?
I just wanted to provide some feedback from the executive committee of the faculty senate. This policy was sent to them last week, the draft policy, and they reviewed it. I believe it was on Friday. I wasn't there, so this is email feedback I received from them. They did point out the typo. Thank you. They indicated that in a conversation with the president, there was a discussion about how honorary degrees should go to individuals who go above and beyond their normal duties and make a great contribution to society. They just wanted to make sure that the language in the criteria section, which is this whole section, but primarily the first line, honorary degree may be awarded to an individual outstanding academic, professional, et cetera, captures that sentiment. You know, this person goes above and beyond their language role. Standard roles, they have language they're proposing for the manual, which it shall solicit names of persons of outstanding academic, professional, and civic attainments. New language is representative of great contributions to society above and beyond their standard role. They just wanted to make sure that, that the committee felt that the language in here adequately covered the sentiment.
Yeah, I understand what the intent is. I think outstanding reflects that. I would be reluctant to further define that. I mean, you're not getting you're not getting recognized for being outstanding for just doing your job.
Yeah. Yeah, outstanding means basically.
Yeah.
Can you read that one more time for me, Dan, though?
Sure, this is the language from, from Audrey Cardani. She says, in a conversation with the president, Mark indicated that honorary degrees should go to individuals who go above and beyond their normal job duties, and their work should be of great contribution to society. Question for you and the board subcommittee is, does this section below on criteria sufficiently capture that sentiment?
And the recommendation that she had put, that's going to be in the university manual?
Yes, this is only for the manual. This is not a recommendation for change in the policy.
Got it.
They-
Okay, great.
Yeah, I want to make sure that's clear. This
No,
is
that's
a
I'm sorry, yeah.
recommendation
Thank you.
here.
Okay, great. Yeah, is any thoughts amongst the group on that?
My only thought is that step, it happens before this step. So
Yeah.
this criteria is taken directly from the university manual.
We should make sure.
So they should go through their process, get faculty approval, have it approved all the way to the president, and then we
And then
can
we can visit
revisit
it.
that language. So it should match.
I agree with you, it should match, yeah. Okay, so, Dan, if you could see what their
Well,
timeline looks like?
Again, on something, I think we need to make sure there's a distinction between the process. The board awards degrees. The president, through the honorary committee, has his criteria to move forward. I don't think that should inform the decision of the board. What they kind of make, the board is not subordinate to the honorary degree committee in granting degrees. It's a important part of the process, but the law is clear, the board awards degrees.
I think the one thing that's kind of a sticky widget for me is I'd love to see the wording consistent on, you know, because it is talking about how, and I believe we took this language directly from the university manual. Is that correct? Right. And so that would be the only thing that I would think, but it needs to go through the faculty senate process first anyway. So
Right.
I would suggest we keep this as is, and then once the faculty senate has gone through their process, we can consider it in an amendment or in our regular routine updating. Does that make sense? Because we don't know what it's going to end up being anyway right now, right?
I think it's fine.
And I'd like to keep it consistent with the manual that we pull from. Everybody comfortable with that, Mike?
Yep, makes sense.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or suggestions?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So this policy is meant to dictate or sort of guide the board once they receive a recommendation from the president. Like, what is it that we do now? So I guess a question, does the recommendation go to a committee of the board first? For example, the one that awards degrees or recommends awarding degrees now is the Academic Affairs Research Committee. Does an honorary degree recommendation go to them first to discuss in regular other degrees, and then the recommendation is made to the full board, or is it the intention that the president's recommendation goes directly to the full board?
And I think we took this up during the development, right, Charlie? We had talked about, does it go to a committee? And I think the consensus was that to take it straight from the board because it is already been vetted significantly. And the president is making his formal recommendation that it would go straight to the board.
Courtney, this is Mike. I think that we left that, as I recall, left that open to give ourselves some flexibility depending on what the issue was. I don't think there's any need to nail the board down as to whether it goes to committee or not.
We can always take something to committee, right, Mike? Regardless if it's in the policy or not. Yeah.
So based on like, just on, well, based on what?
I think it'd be based on if we feel like there's further discussion, or, you know, oftentimes things come to committee for further discussion and vetting prior to going to the board. But I think traditionally it's gone straight to the board for consideration and not through a committee.
So the only thing I would say that is useful, so to be efficient, it can go to the board, right? But the only benefit I can think of for having it to go to the committee first is that if it is a sticky situation and you want to gather more information for the board, and the board can have its own line of thinking perhaps than the honorary degree committee or the president. It's a different group of people looking at it fresh, and they can ask some questions that the full board might have, and then get those questions answered and then present some more information. So it's in the rare occasion where you need a little bit of discussion. That's my thinking usefulness of it there.
Mark?
Wouldn't there be discussion then with the full board?
Yeah, I think in terms of gathering information, like for example, when you discuss, so I don't know when these nominations go forward. So the honorary degree committee does its work around November. So we get all the, when are the nominations due?
I think it was beginning of October or something like that. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so November. So then the president would give the recommendation in what, January, February? Or
So I know in the past what would happen is the honorary degree chair would then work with the president
right?
on the nomination list that was from the honorary degree committee to the chairperson to the president. They would discuss that. And then at that point, the president would make a recommendation to the board.
Around what month?
Probably, I want to say for approval, it would be January, so I
January.
could say probably sometime in December. Typically, our January meeting is when the board would approve.
Okay, so the board sees the recommendations in January.
Right.
Okay. And then what's our next meeting? So it's January.
Our board meeting,
Yeah,
coincidentally, is January 21st,
okay, and then the next one is in like
April.
April.
Yeah, so we'd have to
So-
wrap it up probably by
Yeah.
January.
So my thinking is this, let's say on the really rare occasion where there is need for discussion, it's presented in January. I guess you can call a board meeting in
Yeah.
between that and April. You would like to have everything finalized by April so you can notify the person receiving the award and.
I think
their
they're
commencement.
notified earlier than that.
Yeah,
Because they-
yeah. Yeah, there's a phone call shortly thereafter.
Right after
Once
the
the
January.
board approves,
Okay,
there's calls that are made to the recipients to let them know.
okay,
And then the first of many criteria is to make sure they're even available to
Right.
be in person for the May commencement.
so my thinking is, let's say you need some time for, gathering some additional information, doing these sort of discussions first, will you still have enough time? Should that be done with the full board, or should it be done with a smaller subset that can turn around that work and then present answers to the board? That's my only thing, and
Yeah. I know what you're saying, and I think,
But Courtney, is that really the intent? I mean, this policy is the approval by the board. What chooses to do its business, we're getting into detail that I don't think was intended to be in this policy.
yeah, and I think it's at the discretion of the chair of the committee, chair to take that up if needed, but I think from a traditional approval, perspective and revocation, I think the policy makes sense, but I agree with Mike, it digs down too deep.
okay,
And I think we had talked also in our working group that by not putting in defined times, that actually the president could come up with with the committee could come up with their own new timeline to begin the process earlier and have that so that the university would be in a better position to get excellent degree recipients and speakers and so forth. So that, we're kind of on the back end for this year because we're coming up on the end of the year. But, for future years, by not putting in specific time things, the president and the committee could come up with a timeline which would actually begin the process earlier and get it done sooner to the board.
I'm sorry,
You're good.
sorry with that.
Okay.
The other point I was gonna make is, so let's say we get a recommendation.
Yep.
What does the board use to either agree with that recommendation or not to agree with that recommendation? Does that need to be here? Do we use like when we say value, like what are we using? Are we using the same criteria that the outstanding, do we see any product with the nomination name? So we base our,
Go ahead.
Presumably, you would see a proposal from the president. You wouldn't just see names. You would
Mhm.
would have background information why the president is bringing it forward.
The justification.
and then the same for rescinding and
Mhm.
revoking.
That's
Yeah.
the way it's worked.
Yeah.
And I think, so there, we have the URI cornerstones. My question sort of lies, should that make it somewhere here, a reference to the URI cornerstones anywhere, or is that understood as values?
But yes, we talk about values, but also we have a reference back to the university manual and the process that contains there. So that gives the faculty and the provost and the president that the authority that they have, right? Which is all located in the university manual. So I think that's why, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alyssa and Lauren, it's why we connect it back to the manual. It's for the criteria and the values and the cornerstones that you speak about all delineated within.
One of the roles to be very clear in that area degree change board criteria. So we just kept it at the level of values
Great. That makes sense
Yeah.
to you, Mary? Great. Any other questions or comments on the policy as it is written today? Seeing shaking of heads. All right. Again, as I noted, we will not vote on this today. What we will do is we will take the recommendations that have been made. We will update the policy based on those recommendations, and then we will bring this to our next governance committee meeting for a vote to bring it to the board for recommendation for approval. Does that make sense? All right.
So the full board would get it at our November meeting?
Correct.
Yes.
Yep, that is the plan. So our next meeting of the governance committee is on the 4th. We will do our normal review process and approve it formally to go to the board on the 5th. Correct. All right. The final item on today's agenda is item number 4, and that is adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn? And I need a second.
Second.
Thank you very much.
Chairman of the team.
You guys did great. I'll ask for a voice vote.
Something
In favor, please say yes.
Yeah.
Any
Yes.
opposed? Any abstentions? The motion to adjourn is approved. The next upcoming meeting of the governance committee is scheduled for November 4th. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you. Yes. Alyssa, I forgot to acknowledge you. My apologies.
Finally, you did that one.
Thank you, Michael.
Good luck with the bathroom.